Since its first ever event in 1993, the UFC has staged thousands of memorable fights. While some fights tend to fade from one's memory, there are others that leave a lasting impression on MMA fans. To honour some of the sport's most remarkable matchups, we've decided to take a look at 10 extraordinary fights that went above and beyond any hype that surrounded it. As always, if you guys enjoy this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Now, without further ado, and ranked in no particular order, let's take a look at 10 of the best fights in UFC history. Number 10. Jon Jones vs Alexander Gustafsson 1. Heading into his UFC 165 title fight with Alexander the Mauler Gustafsson, light heavyweight champion Jon Jones had looked practically untouchable. At that point, Jones was beating former champions like Lyoto Machida and Shogun with relative ease. As such, most pundits believed that the Mauler represented little threat to the New York native's dominant title reign. Of course, in the end, most pundits were proven wrong. To the surprise of many, Gustafsson gave the champ all he could handle for 5 straight rounds. The Mauler even became the first man to take Jon Jones down, a feat that 19 others had failed to do. Overall, both fighters had shining moments in a contest that had Fight of the Night written all over it. When the dust finally settled, Jones managed to hang on to his title via a somewhat controversial unanimous decision win. That said, several fans and media members felt Gustafsson had done enough to get his hand raised. In any case, the UFC recently announced that the legendary fight would officially be inducted into the Hall of Fame in the near future. Number 9. Robbie Lawler vs Rory MacDonald 2. Ruthless Robbie Lawler is a former welterweight champ who has been involved in several epic bouts. One such contest took place at UFC 189, when the Ruthless One met Rory MacDonald for a second time. The two had previously faced off in 2013 at UFC 167. That evening, Lawler managed to earn a hard-fought split decision win. This time around, Robbie Lawler would be defending his newly won welterweight title for the very first time. Given that their contest had been so competitive, most pundits expected the rematch to be an excellent fight. Of course, the bout would still go on to exceed everyone's expectations. The epic clash turned out to be an all-out war that had fans on the edge of their seats. After initially absorbing a great deal of punishment, MacDonald landed some big shots late into the third round and nearly put Lawler away. However, Lawler managed to hang on and eventually TKO his opponent in the 5th. The fight showcased two mixed martial artists who had taken each other to their absolute limit. When it was all said and done, both athletes were a bloody mess, after competing in a fight that could only be described as an instant classic. Number 8. Forrest Griffin vs Stefan Bonnar 1. Most people didn't expect a clash between two reality show contestants to go down as one of the greatest MMA fights of all time. However, that's precisely what happened when Forrest Griffin and Stefan Bonnar competed for a UFC contract in the Ultimate Fighter Season 1 finale. This nationally televised battle turned into a brutal slugfest, in which both men landed heavy blows and just proceeded to keep moving forward. Griffin and Bonnar exhibited a kind of toughness that is rarely seen in professional sports. When it was all said and done, the judges scored the fight 29-28 in favour of Forrest Griffin. Despite having lost the legendary meeting, Dana White would also offer Stefan Bonnar a contract given his amazing performance. In the end, Bonnar vs Griffin 1 was a commercial success, and was largely credited with helping to popularise the sport of mixed martial arts. The bout itself made MMA fans out of countless channel surfers who happened to stumble across this incredible showdown. Number 7. Dan Henderson vs Mauricio Shogun 1. One would be hard-pressed to find a fight that features more momentum shifts than Mauricio Shogun vs Dan Hendo Henderson 1. The two legends collided for the first time at UFC 139 back in 2011. Back then, there were several instances in which both fighters looked to be on the verge of being finished. In the early going, Henderson controlled the fight and nearly put Shogun away. However, the later round saw the Brazilian rally and turn the tide in his favour. Despite being a fast-paced and hard-hitting affair, the 5-round classic somehow went the distance. In the end, Dan Henderson would secure a unanimous decision victory in a contest that saw two veterans shine in a Fight of the Year winner. Number 6. Israel Adesanya vs Kelvin Gastelum. On paper, the bout between Israel Adesanya and Kelvin Gastelum looked to be an intriguing grappler versus striker matchup for the interim middleweight championship. However, few fans expected it to become Fight of the Year in 2019. At UFC 236, the two men put on a striking clinic, that allowed both fighters to showcase their extremely durable chins. The bout was exciting and competitive throughout, with this knockdown drag-out affair turning out to be Alisanya's toughest test to date. Of course, as the contest went on, the reigning middleweight champ began to pull away. While the last stylebender would pick up a decision victory, both fighters would earn the respect of MMA fans from all around the world. Number 5. Frankie Edgar vs Gray Maynard 2. When lightweights Frankie the Answer Edgar and Gray the Bully Maynard met for the first time in 2008, it produced a mostly forgettable fight that saw Maynard earn a decision victory. The two would meet again for a second time roughly 3 years later at UFC 125. This time around, the stakes were higher and the fight itself was undoubtedly more memorable. In one of the most dominant first rounds you'll ever see, Maynard nearly finished Edgar and appeared to be on the verge of claiming the lightweight strap. However, Edgar responded by putting his championship heart on display and pushing his way back into the fight little by little. Surprisingly, the Answer was able to do enough in the late rounds to earn a split draw on the judges' scorecard, in turn retaining his title in a fight that exceeded all of the hype. Number 4. Mark Hunt vs Antonio Silva 1. Heavyweights Mark Hunt and Antonio Bigfoot Silva are two men who had a knack for putting opponents to sleep. At UFC Fight Night 33, they were set to meet for the first time in what many expected to be a short-lived affair. However, the contest turned out to be a 5-round brawl, which saw both men dish out and absorb the kind of blows that can often shorten a fighter's career. The exhausted heavyweights put on a performance that easily earned Fight of the Night honours. Fittingly, the contest ended in a draw, though Silva's result was later changed to a no contest after failing a post-fight drugs test. Number 3. Anderson Silva vs Chael Sonnen 1. While he was making a name for himself as one of the sport's best trash talkers, most people didn't give Chael Sonnen much of a chance against Anderson the Spider Silva when they first met at UFC 117. After all, despite a 3-fight win streak, Sonnen was seen as somewhat of a journeyman with a modest 26-10-1 record since turning pro. Conversely, Silva had established himself as a dominant champion who was unbeaten in the UFC. However, the fight played out much differently than anyone had expected. During the fight, Sonnen was able to take his opponent down at will and manhandle the champ for the better part of 5 rounds. However, just when the title seemed to be slipping away, miraculously, Silva synced in an arm triangle to complete one of the sport's most remarkable comebacks. While it may not have been as competitive as some of the other fights we've discussed, the manner in which it was won easily earns it a spot on our list. Number 2. Conor McGregor vs Nate Diaz 2. Given that it was one of the most watched fights in the organisation's history, it's fair to say that Conor McGregor vs Nate Diaz 2 was a highly anticipated rematch. That said, the two men still managed to put on a show that would exceed viewers' somewhat lofty expectations. Their epic UFC 202 meeting turned into a showcase of both elite striking and exceptional durability. While Conor McGregor repeatedly dropped Nate Diaz in the early rounds, Nate Diaz eventually began landing some brutal shots of his own, which also included his signature Stockton slap. Both Conor and Nate left everything they had inside the cage. Of course, McGregor would ultimately get the nod and avenge his first loss in the UFC. Number 1. Zhang Weili vs Joanna Jędrzejczyk. After making her UFC debut in 2018, Zhang Weili took the strawweight division by storm, winning her first 4 fights while also capturing the division's belt. While she had won her previous bouts in dominant fashion, some were skeptical as to how she would fare in her first title defense against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. After all, Joanna was a former strawweight champion who had successfully defended her belt on 5 occasions. Of course, once the cage doors shut, the two fighters proceeded to deliver one of the greatest fights in MMA history. While Joanna held the advantage in volume, Weili responded with some devastating shots of her own. By the end of the contest, it was clear that the fight had taken a serious physical toll on both women. This was especially true of Joanna, who ended up suffering a massive hematoma on her forehead. In one of the most razor-close split decisions in UFC history, the champ would earn the win to retain her strawweight title. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Apart from that, thanks so much for watching guys, and we'll see you on the next video.